First of all, let me just say good morning to all the attendees that are on the line, and appreciate you being here. And apologies for running a bit late, some technical difficulties on our end, but nonetheless, very happy to have you all. So my name is Abdullah Snobar. I'm the executive director for the DMZ. Obviously, on the call we have the Honorable Prabmeet Sarkaria, Associate Minister of Small Business and the Red Tape Reduction, and we also have our President Mohamed Lachemi for Ryerson University. So, as many of you know, the DMZ is a business incubator and accelerator program which supports technology companies to reach global expansion, which enables them to foster more made in Canada jobs, which we're really happy about. So obviously, we're very happy to have the Minister on with us today. This call is going to be focusing on preparing technology leaders across Ontario of the potential impacts of COVID-19, but also the opportunities that might actually be available. And I think we always want to look at the silver lining across the board. So we have over 200, now I think 225 people from across the province joining today, including many startups from our Toronto and Niagara offices and from our partner office in Innisfil. So we've looked at a number of questions from startup founders, and we hope to get through as many as possible. I know that we're on a timeline today, but we also have the Q&A at the bottom. If you look at the icons below, you'll see that there's going to be a chance for you to ask questions, and we have people from my team looking at the questions during the call. So if we don't get to all your questions today, the minister has been generous to help answer some of these questions offline, which we will follow up with everybody post the call. So without further ado, Minister, why don't we get started? And maybe before we kind of get into the questions, I want to welcome you and first of all ask how you and your family are doing, and I hope everybody is okay.
Well, thank you very much, Abdullah. First of all, I want to take the opportunity to thank both President Lachemi and yourself, Abdullah, for the leadership role that you have taken amongst these very unprecedented times that we've come across in the last couple of weeks. You know, we look back a couple of weeks ago, I don't think a lot of us could have imagined where we would be today. But it's really been an opportunity for us to work together. Institutions like Ryerson have really stepped up, and you reaching out last week to have this conversation and to see how Ryerson can play a part as a solution to this issue really means a lot to the government of Ontario, and President Lachemi as well has been an amazing advocate on that end. So I want to take an opportunity to thank the entire Ryerson team for their leadership during this time, and wish all of you and all the participants, and thank them for being online. I know time is very valuable during these times, so we want to be that have that opportunity to reach out to those impacted and see how we can work together and what kind of supports we can have throughout the next couple of weeks.
Well, thank you very much, Minister. And I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that you and your government have done a tremendous job over the past few weeks in responding to COVID-19 and really taking no small measure to support the people of Ontario. Maybe to begin, can you give us a quick recap on what the province and the government has been able to do this far in support of the small business during this pandemic?
Yeah, so one of the starts for our government was to really, given how everything is changing every minute, by the hour, by the day, it's really uncertain. So we had, about a week and a half ago, given that there's really no playbook for a time like this. We've been trying to reach out to many different businesses, different chambers, organizations, academic institutions like yours, really trying to see how we can bring this forward and how we can have amenable solutions that will really have a lasting impact across the province. So about a week and a half ago, we made our first, I would say, introduction that is going to put forward for Ontario businesses. It was in total about a $17 billion plan, but specifically for business and cash flow, it was about $10 billion. And so if I break that $10 billion of deferral or for support, it would be through primarily tax deferrals. So for about $6 billion of tax that usually gets is owed or remitted to the province. We've been able to work to free up some cash. Also, in some circumstances where a property tax is owed, we worked with municipalities to offer a backstop to be able to provide about $1.8 billion of relief through that. So individuals or businesses that own can get some more freed up cash flow on that end, and about $1.9 billion through the WSIB payments that are provided to the government as well. Secondly, I think one of the other parts of it was an exemption for the employer health tax. So this is about a $355 million tax cut for, and it impacts about 57,000 employers across Ontario. So there was many different, these are just kind of the first supports, and the next part of the economic the package is really going to be formed through some of our discussions that we have today, discussions that and ideas that come up from members that are involved with the DMZ, and really be able to take it up from there. So that was step one. We're going to continue monitoring along with all the information that was put forward through the federal government, which has been some of the tax also tax deferrals, as well as small business loans and some of the other support. So we're going to work with all levels of government on this to be able to get our small businesses and the economy back on track. So we're looking forward to the next steps and learning and hearing more from specific needs from each of your members or others in business as well.
Thank you very much, Minister. So maybe just shifting into the next question. So, and thank you everything for what you've all done so far, and I think it's definitely commendable. And so we've received a number of questions and requests to the DMZ of companies and startups that want to be able to help the province flatten the curve across COVID-19, and they really want to be able to engage and bring solutions forward in this effort. How should companies actually engage with your office or with the province for procurement purposes, and what's the response time they should be expecting, and is there anything specific you're looking for? So 3 questions in one, but I'm happy to start off by just how can they engage on a procurement level, Minister?
Yeah, so on the procurement side, first of all, it's been amazing to see so many companies stepping up and really taking the lead and being a part of the solution. And so that's where the technology side and the innovation has really come to light. It's been amazing to see these success stories that have come forward. So the province actually launched a centralized website. We heard in the first week or so that companies or entrepreneurs had to go to various levels or were going in different places. So we wanted to really centralize the process. And the process right now is a very simple website, ontario.ca/Ontario together. And so this website takes in all of the ideas, all of the services, all of the asks, all of the solutions and proposals, and then goes through them through the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade. So it's a website that has helped us, really pick up some amazing leads over the last couple of weeks. We've seen some amazing success stories, whether it's been on procurement for ventilators, procurement for health solutions, testing solutions, swab solutions. It's been incredible to see everyone really step up to the plate and present their COVID-related solution onto that website. So, if your members do have any sort of membership any sort of solution or proposed solution, and they want to speak to the government and give the government the idea around it, they can definitely submit to that website. And for follow-up purposes, in the first 2 days we launched, we had over 2,000 submissions on it. So sometimes it does take, time. Time is everything right now, but we've got our whether it's our public service, political team, all working through these submissions very quickly. But our office is always here to help offer up any support and services that we can from our side on a follow-up. There's also, for companies that might need to incur some extra cost to put one of our solutions into play, we've also offered up about a $50 million fund for that individuals can apply to if they're eligible. So any information on that, we can definitely from our offices and definitely put that forward. Because we really recognize how rapidly changing all these these circumstances are, and we really need technology to be the forefront of this. And we've seen so much of that, and so many businesses step up to the plate right now, and we're looking forward to seeing more solutions around that, and seeing how companies can help out, and the government wants to be there if the solution is going to work. We're working with all levels of Ministry of Health, Economic Development. All the ministries are working together right now and putting COVID COVID ahead of everything. So we'll do our part in making sure that that can happen and that can work.
That's appreciated, Minister, and thanks for giving some oversight on that. So Ontario Together is the website to be able to help with looking at services that are supporting COVID-19 and help flatten the curve. So that's going to, and I know there's lots of applications, which is a good sign to show that Ontario is really coming together in hard times to support. Maybe shifting into and kind of what you spoke to earlier about support for small business, financial support. And I think there has been some concern over the past couple of weeks, Minister, around a lot of small business not being eligible for the federal wage subsidy. And I know that the feds are doing some work around changing that up a little bit right now and kind of making it more startup or small business friendly. But is there any considerations for the province to be able to consider their own wage subsidy program or loans or grants to support startups during COVID-19? So maybe in addition to that, is there any plan to support the venture capital and angel community in Ontario to continue investing strongly into our Ontario startups?
Yeah. So on a couple of those questions, I think. First and foremost on the wage subsidy. So I think it's important, more than ever. And I do want to give, during this time, it's moving so quickly. We're going to do our best from our side when we have our conversations with the federal government to relay those concerns that you've raised, and I know we raised those offline as well. And a lot of other businesses have come up to us to discuss those certain issues. So personally, when I speak to the Minister of Small Business, I will also advocate on behalf of the tech community and highlight some of the challenges that wage subsidy is currently prohibiting certain companies from applying. I think the intention is to move to towards a collective solution to that, and I think the feds have been fairly responsive to that, the federal government. But of course, what we really need to do is we need to see what programs are working, what programs are not working, and then over the coming weeks, coming months, coming days, Ontario's, what I mentioned first is, their first $10 billion aid package was simply just the start of it. There's going to be a long runway here. And so for us to be able to hear from, the tech community itself, we're going to rely on experts when we're talking about venture capitalists, when we're talking about the investment community. We want to, rely on the banking, the business community, the tech community to really tell us, how can we better support, what programs we'll have. It's a limited supply of money that we have. It's not an infinite resource, but we want to make sure that where we put our resources is going to have the biggest impact. What's not working, I think that's critical for us to know, and what's going to produce the most economic activity from our investments into those programs. So that's why it's more than ever right now is to keep those lines of communication open between your side, your teams, your entrepreneurs, your startup community, and our government to really listen to it and hear from what we need to do to better support that specific tech community. And I'm very confident that we'll work with all levels of government, regional, provincial, federal, to put those supports in play. And I know Toronto specifically and Ontario specifically has been a key player in the tech sector across the world. Per capita startups I think we're second only to the Silicon Valley in the entire in all of North America. So it tells you how much of a competitive advantage we have, and we want to do everything to maintain it, and we want to do everything we can to build upon that. So I think from our end, we're going to be all hands on deck and taking more suggestions from your members to really help drill down into what we can do better and what we can facilitate on some of those conversations and those policies then actually becoming programs, and whether it's grants, whether it's just supports from all levels of government. We'll be there to listen and then also support those through.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I think the consultations have started, and I think you've been engaging quite a bit, including with the DMZ, and we're happy to provide feedback and support wherever possible. So we thank you for that. And I know there's a lot of questions about people asking a bit more detail, which I promise we will be sharing more detail post our call with Minister today. And kind of before I go into my last question, we have been looking at the questions that have been coming up at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to pass it on to Ahmed just to ask maybe 2 or 3 questions from the people who have joined us today from across the province. Maybe just 2 or 3 questions. Yep. Ahmed, over to you.
Thank you, Abdullah, and good morning, Minister. The first question comes from Amit Jas. He is the co-founder of Noun, and his question is, there's uncertainty with regards to labor and employment laws as many startups hire seasonal workers, skilled contract workers, and more. Is the province open to modifying labor laws and regulations to avoid any litigation for startups?
Everything is on the table. That's a great point. If there's what I'm trying to do is obviously from the lens of regulatory review, regulatory kind of framework. We've made certain changes already specific to many different industries. So if there's a specific regulation or a specific ask from a small business on regulations, everything's on the table. We're willing to look at it, and if there's certain clarity that needs to be given from the government side, more than happy to do that. So I definitely think that's going to be one of our most powerful tools during this time and this crisis, is to be able to pull those regulatory levers. So if there's a specific regulatory, whether it's labor side, bring that forward. We'll take that offline, bring that forward to my office. We'll look at it, and we'll take it up with the Ministry of Labor. And just over the last 2 weeks, we've made incredible changes to so many different regulations because it's helping businesses respond a bit better. So whether it's an impact on costs, whether it's an impact on the ability to operate, we'll look at everything, and we'll look to bring those changes forward. And there's a great appetite from our side to be able to do that. So maybe if you send over some specific requests, we'll definitely do that and offer any clarity that we can during these times to help and support.
Thank you. And the second question is from Joseph Bogdan from NISO Energy. Would Ontario invest in covering resources and opportunities like intellectual property costs? This would be a great help for early stage and pre-sale companies to build novel solutions in strategic industries. What's your opinion on that?
That's a great question. And, as we build out our supports, just before we got into kind of COVID, we had just kind of worked with what Minister Romano, Jim Balsillie had struck up, our government had struck up a specific panel just on property and how we can better support Canadian companies through this, because through some of our work we had realized that outside of Canada there was a lot of individuals that would commercialize it outside of Canada, so we were losing a lot of benefits to that right before COVID started. But these are discussions that will definitely continue from our end and from our government to see how we can give our startups a competitive advantage on intellectual property or other or other work related to that. So that's something that still is going to stay top of mind for us, and something that we're going to continue to work on and look forward to. Specific suggestions to help SMEs, be more than happy to read up on a submission that can be made and see how we can incorporate that. But from our side, government's angle, we recognize that there's some significant and concerns that have been raised, and we've commissioned a report, some research panel on how we can fix that issue and how we can better support our entrepreneurs from the IP side and protecting IP and putting some money behind that. So we're really looking at that very carefully, because we know there's huge economic ramifications for not being able to commercialize, whether it's IP or research or many different different areas that we've seen that some of our Canadian companies or Ontario companies have struggled in the past, and so we're going to definitely look towards trying to fix that in the coming days, weeks, and months for sure.
Thank you. And if we have time for one more, there's been a number of questions in regards to procurement, especially in regards to response time. And if there's anything specific when it comes to technical or tech innovations that your office or the provincial government is looking for specifically, that Ontario startups can support with.
Yeah, so I would say that on response times, just trying to, we're going to do whatever we can to effectively respond to every request possible. I'll offer up my office. If you can share my office's email right after this. I've got my director of stakeholders on the line as well. Maybe she can drop her email into the chat box. But we'd be more than happy to follow up on any issues that are coming up from a response angle, and we'll get you a response. That's if individuals aren't getting responses, that's unacceptable, and we'll make sure that we triage the list to make sure that those ideas are at least responded to, and we get someone back to respond. But we're very much committed to right now, just given the circumstances, COVID-related innovation or technology. The Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Economic Development, we're all going to be looking at that very heavily to see where we can find some supports, where we can adapt some of those technologies through that procurement portal that we've made. So a lot of it right now has been focused primarily on the testing side of it. It has been focused on, there's also been a huge focus on just the PPE side. But we're now seeing the government shifting to other preventative measures, tracking measures. We're looking at everything now. So as the days and weeks go on, we're going to be looking towards efficient technological solutions to be able to combat COVID-19. So we'll definitely offer up our office if there's any issues getting response times or any information on feedback. We're happy to facilitate that from the Ministry of Small Business and Red Tape Reduction.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I think that's all the time we had for questions from the group. There are a lot of other questions which we will get to and we will answer through written response from your office, and we'll share it out with the members who have joined this call. Maybe, Minister, last question. I know that everybody's in the thick of it at this point. Has the government really thought about what happens post COVID-19, and are there any plans that are being put in place to help Ontario get back to doing business in the new normal, if you will? Can you speak to that for a bit?
Yeah, of course. I think as we go through this time, we're going to be putting together almost what we internally an economic task force to see how we can recover and how we can get Ontario back on track. And that's really going to be the most important part. We don't want to just help businesses weather the storm. We want to help them maintain all the great success they've had coming into coming into this. And so that's going to be the most important part of it. And that's where dialogue and communication is going to be key between our government and stakeholders and companies and sectors, tech sector, and regardless of what industry you represent, we want to be able to find ways to conveniently support all of those. And so this is probably going to be a very something that we're going to build towards. You're going to see some exciting announcements from the government over the next week or so in regards specifically to this, is how are we going to rebuild our economy again? How are we going to rebuild Ontario back into the economic engine it was just a couple of days and weeks ago. And that's going to be the most important thing for us as a government, and to be able to support those small businesses, support businesses, and get the economy back on track. Millions of people have lost their jobs in the last 2 weeks, right? And if we look back 3 weeks ago, no one could have predicted the magnitude of this and what it was going to have. We're going to have to work together to get through this, but the government will be there to support any stimulus packages that we do. We want to make sure we consult and we work with our industry partners across every level of government to get them right. And I think that's going to be the key. So we're definitely looking forward to that and involving our stakeholders in the recovery process and being able to support businesses and get Ontario back on track.
Thank you very much, Minister, and I appreciate all the things that you've said today. And you mentioned about the programs and support and the focus on Ontario business, small business in particular, and removing the red tape and helping out with procurement. So I really appreciate you stepping up and doing this and speaking to Ontario's tech community at large. And we want to thank you. We know it's very busy for you. There's lots on the go, but we hopefully, and we would like to continue doing these discussions with the community and yourself and your office. And again, I apologize for the folks that we couldn't answer your questions. We will be getting back with answers to all the questions that you've had. But again, we thank you very much, Minister, for doing this and taking the time. We wish you and your family, obviously, only the safest, time during this very challenging kind of experience that we're all facing. And anything that we can do from a community perspective, please let us know. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you very much. And our offer stands from our side is any follow-up that's needed from our team would be more than happy to do it. The steps that we announced 2 weeks ago are just the first step. Lots more to come that we want to derive directly from amazing individuals at Ryerson like you and President Lachemi. So thank you guys for all of your leadership, for working with the government on all levels, and we'll look forward to continuing that dialogue and discussion in the coming days. And stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks, Abdullah.
Bye.